morning, my friends, and welcome to yet another stupendous installment of Morning Reload. From very high above all other puerile and insipid forms of Wyoming mainstream media, this is Cowboy State Politics. I, of course, am your illustrious host, David Iverson, firmly ensconced behind the silver Cowboy State Politics microphone and broadcasting to you from the base of the Bighorns in beautiful Buffalo, Wyoming. Well, good morning, my friends, and welcome to the program. Why is it that the Wyoming media attempts to discredit anything that holds Wyoming legislators accountable to their record? As with all states, in Wyoming there are a number of organizations that attempt to rank elected officials according to how they vote on a variety of different issues. Some of them are nationally based, such as the National Rifle Association or Club for Growth or the American Conservative Union. Some of them are issue-specific, such as the National Rifle Association, while others attempt to address where a legislator lands on the political spectrum. The CPAC, or the American Conservative Union, are examples of those. The reason that all of these organizations came into existence is politicians themselves. We constantly hear them saying things like, I am more conservative than this legislator, or I'm tougher on guns, or I'm a strong conservative. All of those statements are ridiculously nebulous, and when you get down to it, they really don't mean anything. So these organizations got together and tried to put some data behind those statements, trying to prove the veracity of what these politicians are saying. Do they actually support the Second Amendment? Or are they really pro-life as they claim? You can either dig through a veritable mountain of information at wyoleg.gov. That one is Wyoming's legislative website. It contains all the information. Well, they claim that it contains all the information about the Wyoming legislature. But it's not particularly intuitive. You can't just search for a representative or senator and then have their voting record listed out. You have to go to every single bill and determine how they voted on which vote and in which committee. Honestly, it takes a lot of time. Just to give you an idea, in this past legislative session, there was over 600 roll call votes. A roll call vote is one that is actually recorded. That is, for the record. The vast majority of the things that are decided in the Wyoming legislature are not recorded, or are what they call voice votes. Tell me if this sounds familiar. Well, I voted for it on first reading. I thought it was a good bill and it deserved time on the floor. But then a couple amendments were added to it, and in the end, it just wasn't the right fit for Wyoming, and I couldn't vote for it. Let me give you an example of that one. House Bill 66. That's the bill that would have banned mask and vaccine mandates in the state. When it hit the floor, it was a pretty simple bill. And then Poison Barry Crago added $850 million to it. So when it came up on third reading, there was no way anybody was going to vote for it. Because they couldn't. It would have bankrupted the state had it passed. The truth is, first reading is usually a voice vote. Second reading is merely a formality, unless there are amendments to the bill. And really the only one that is actually recorded hardly ever is third reading. So really what he did is he gave all of these pro-mask and pro-vaccine and pro-big government types a way out. Pretty slick, huh? So anyhow, all of these ratings websites attempt to make sense out of all of this mess. The Redcoats, as you might imagine, hate all of these ratings websites, and their pals in the media try to discredit them. And that's where we're going next. But first, a really quick but totally self-indulgent profit timeout. This installment of Cowboy State Politics is brought to you by New Trend Hats. It's spring. Yeah, I know. In some places it doesn't yet look that way, but it is coming, and you need something to put on that head of yours. You should really check out newtrendhats.com. It's a Wyoming-based company down in Kemmerer. They make those really cool baseball caps with the ponytail hole on the back of them. But they've got a wide selection of hats for both men and women. So if you're looking for a new hat, go check out newtrendhats.com. And if you're looking for something else to put on the other end of your body, like your feet, you should really check out the Buffalo Wool Company. They make the most amazing socks that you'll ever wear. Go to their website, thebuffalowoolco.com, and get you some of the most amazing socks that you're going to find. Oh, and by the way, for the winners of the sock contest that we had a week or so ago, those socks were shipped out on Friday, so be checking your mailbox for them. You should get them pretty soon. Back to those ratings websites that all of the Redcoats hate. There's a number of them in the state of Wyoming. There's WyoRhino, WyoVote, and Evidence-Based Wyoming. As I've told you before, they all pretty much do the same thing. They're an attempt to show you exactly who all of these legislators are, where they land on the political spectrum, so that when they come to your door and they say, hey, I'm a conservative, that you have a way to go back and check and see if they were telling you the truth. Allow me to let you in on a little secret. If they're a politician and their lips are moving, there's a high likelihood that they're lying to you. But not all of them, of course. Most of the folks that end up sitting on the home side of the stadium, the conservatives, publish their voting records on their Facebook page or on their own website so that you can see exactly what they did on your behalf. For the rest of them that don't do that, we have these ratings websites. Now, if you ever hear a phrase like, well, all of these ratings websites, they're all biased, that should be your first clue that you need to go do some investigating. You either hear that dumb refrain in one of two places. It's either the politician that ended up on the very liberal side of the spectrum because of how they voted, or it's their cheerleaders in the media trying to protect them. I direct your attention to the cow pie. In an article written by Leo Trotsky Wolfson entitled, We Need 10 More, Freedom Caucus pushes for more members at Town Hall, looks ahead to 2024, we find this little gem. Quote, Bear mentioned a few different political ranking websites, and here's the important part, all of which come from a staunchly conservative viewpoint. Although he said each of these sites may have certain flaws, their validity is borne out when taken together with the consistency of their rankings. End quote. All of which come from a staunchly conservative viewpoint. I've asked Leo Wolfson to put down his pom-poms for 5 minutes repeatedly, but he refuses to do so. That's because he's not an unbiased journalist. He continues to cheerlead for all of the Redcoats in the House of Representatives and the Senate. So what about all these websites that come from what Trotsky calls a staunchly conservative viewpoint? Let's take evidencebasedwyoming.com first. The only thing that website does is tracks how often a legislator votes with the Republicans and how often they vote with the Democrats. That's it. There's nothing else to it. If what Trotsky says is true, that all of them come from a staunchly conservative viewpoint, then transparency in and of itself is staunchly conservative. And I think that we should all probably take that as a compliment, that it is conservative to tell your constituents exactly what it is that you're doing, to be honest with the people that put you in office. But there's one more thing that Trotsky's attempt to turn a phrase reveals for us. Because all of these ratings websites at least attempt to tell the truth about what's happening in Cheyenne, and that one of the biggest cheerleaders of the Redcoats thinks that they are all staunchly conservative, that by definition means that everybody who is not among the 26 conservatives in the Wyoming House, at least according to Trotsky Wolfson, is not and cannot be honest with their constituents. And what about the 100 or so articles that Leo Wolfson has written praising the moderates in the Wyoming legislature? How is it that he is able to determine that those people actually are moderate? Perhaps they are just Democrats that are masquerading as moderates. But he wouldn't be able to know that, since he places no credibility whatsoever in any of these ratings websites. The truth is, and this article is proof of the fact, that Trotsky is just another partisan that is not interested in giving you a fair and balanced report of what's happening in Wyoming politics. And since I'm on the subject, one more thing that I'm really irritated about with this article. Trotsky continues to claim that there are 26 members of the Wyoming Freedom Caucus. Multiple members of the Wyoming House of Representatives who really are conservative have flat told Wolfson that they are not a member of the Freedom Caucus, and yet he continues to print that they are. And I quote, The Freedom Caucus membership currently sits at about 26 members in the State House. End quote. Now, skip a few paragraphs down in the middle of the article. Quote, despite signing on to various Freedom Caucus letters and speaking at Saturday's event, Pendergraft reiterated to Cowboy State Daily that he is not a Freedom Caucus member. A few other legislators have also declined official association with the caucus, even though they usually vote with its members. End quote. If voting with people who are members of the Freedom Caucus qualifies you as a member of the Freedom Caucus, then it also has to be true that if you vote with the Democrats consistently, that you are a member of the Democrat Caucus. The 31 members of the House of Representatives that do not align themselves with the conservatives nor have a conservative voting record vote 85% of the time with the Democrats. You heard that right. 85% of the time. So if what Leo Wolfson says in this article is true, then the 31 members of the House of Representatives that vote with the Democrats are Democrats. Why haven't you printed that, Leo Wolfson? Now, if Leo Wolfson was actually behaving as a journalist, he would print that in his next article. But of course you're not going to see him print that because he's the cheerleader of the Redcoats. What he ought to do is put down his pom-poms for 5 minutes and realize the inconsistencies in his own writing. But maybe asking for a moment of self-reflection from a redcoat or from one of the people that cheers them on is a bridge too far for a Monday morning. The truth is, my friends, the only way that you're going to get past all of this, all of the bullcrap in the cow pie and the Red Star and all of the political noise, is to do your own research. That's why on CowboyStatePolitics.com you can find links to pretty much whatever I talk about during the program on the website so that you can read it for yourself and you can find out what is true and what is not true. You can find out who actually is a conservative and who is just a Democrat masquerading as one. But there again, you've got to do your own research and read it for yourself. One more note before I let you go for this morning. There is yet another set of legislative rankings that are about to come out. The Sheridan County Republican women have decided to rate all of the legislators as to how they voted on the bills that their Legislative Action Committee supported or didn't support. And those ratings should be released at their luncheon this morning. It's at 11 o'clock at the Ramada Inn in Sheridan. So you should really go check that out. Well, that'll about do it for this morning's installment of Morning Reload. Have a good week, and we'll talk again on Wednesday. But for now, from the base of the Bighorns in beautiful Buffalo, Wyoming, I'm David Iverson, and this is the one and only Cowboy State Politics.